Welcome to the Reading Rift. I'm your host, Lydia Legacy, and I have the privilege of speaking with T.L. Combs today about her newest book, The Forsaken Crown, and we're going to learn all about all things T.L. Combs and her books and her crazy career changes that you're going to want to stay tuned to hear about. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Lydia. I appreciate it.
So for listeners, in this episode, we're going to get to know the author a little bit, ask some questions about how did you even find yourself writing a fantasy romance book? And then we're going to talk about self-publishing. What was that like for you? And we're going to talk about, in your book, there were some themes that I really resonated with and I really thought were beautiful that I want to talk about. One of them was this idea of kindness is a strength. And when we can be kind, it doesn't cost us anything, but it actually is it's not something that makes you weak. It's something that makes you strong. And then I also want to talk about the complexities of relationships, specifically romantic relationships, but I feel like what we're going to talk about can apply to a wide variety of relationships. But your book touches on some complex relationship dynamics that I really thought you portrayed beautifully.
Thank
So
you.
I just want to talk about those. So listeners, you'll definitely want to stick around to hear about all these topics. So let's get started. I want to learn about your background as a professional chef because I saw some snippets in the book itself that was like, oh, maybe this is like an homage to your past as a professional chef. So how did you get into being a professional chef? Did you always want to do that? Was that a childhood dream?
Yeah, actually, around I feel like two or three, I was in the kitchen with my mom, and I distinctly remember being in the kitchen with her making brownies. And I said to her, "I want to do this," and she was like, "Well, what do you mean?" I was like, I want to do this. Like, I want to do whatever we're doing." Like, I don't even think I had the words for it. Uh, and she said, "Well, if that's what you want to do, that's called being a chef, and you can do whatever you want to do." So from that moment, I had in my brain that's what I was going to do. Now, throughout that, I would draw, I would paint, I would write. I was really an avid reader and stuff too. So I mean, I what my parents basically said, whatever you set your mind to do, go ahead and do it. Just make sure you do it well. So that's just what I did. So when I graduated high school, I took a gap year. And when I say gap year, I still went to school, but I went to Australia for a semester and had fun there. And then after I came back, I went to culinary school.
That's so cool. Culinary school, I feel like it's kind of like a dream of like, I don't know, I watch all the baking shows on Netflix of like these competitions of these bakers, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that sounds so fun. And I'm like, actually, then I cook for my family and myself, and I'm like, okay, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's not actually all luxury and beautiful dishes that
Yeah.
there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot
So
of work.
how does your experience as a chef work into your writing?
I guess it's the discipline aspect of it all. I am very strict with my scheduling and when I do and how much I do. Um, Time management is a big thing of being a chef. And so I apply that in when I set schedules and set dates for myself. I make sure that I adhere to them and I set myself up, as a regiment. Like I know I can get however many words done a day. So that means I can get this book done, however many weeks or months out. And so that's how I pretty much set myself up. It's just that whole time management situation. I have the same 24 hours as everybody else. I just make sure I use them really wisely.
Okay, you said that and I was like, click, click, click. I think of Thanksgiving when I'm making a turkey and I'm making all these side dishes and the bread and everything. Every year I'm like, what do I do with the oven? Or like, what am how have I been standing here all day? And like, so
Right.
that is actually really great because I watched my husband in his writing and I've talked to a lot of authors at this point too, of like, if you don't have the discipline, you're not going to be able to translate from this is my craft, this is my passion to I can make some money to provide
Right.
and do this because
Right.
there is a little bit of a difference
Mhm.
in business level and discipline levels to make those distinctions.
Absolutely.
So I admire your time management skills. I got two little kids and another on the way. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like I have no time management when I used to be very time managed, but
Yeah.
hopefully I get back to it eventually.
You'll get there.
Um, Yeah. So, how did you decide you wanted to write a book? I read on your bio that you had a friend that really encouraged you, but what was it like for you to kind of make this realization?
Right. So my I wrote a book back in like I want to say 2007, 2008, and it was during a really tumultuous time in my life. I was going through a really bad relationship, and I needed an escape. And oddly enough, I had just finished reading Twilight, the Twilight series. I know what it is. But I had just finished reading that, and I read it like in a week, like the whole series, and I was like, I used to write all the time. I used to journal every day. I used to do all that kind of stuff all through middle school, like elementary through middle school and high school. And I was like, I want to write a story about a chef. So a young chef and her journey and a romance kind of intertwined in that. So that's what I did. I wrote it down and no one ever saw it. I mean, other than my family members, I read it to them and that was it. And they loved it and whatever. And that was the end of that. And I didn't pick up writing until I want to say about 2022. It was right, while COVID was kind of petering off. And I had a girlfriend from Mom Talk that I, became really good friends with. And I was telling her about a dream I had. And it was like, I just saw this woman. And I think I had just finished reading Lily from Taya Rain. And it was all the complete set. It's a romantic fantasy and I was like, I just had a dream, and the woman was like wandering around the woods, not knowing who she is or how she got there. And turns out, she goes into the hospital and she's pregnant and she doesn't know how that happened. And my girlfriend's like, that sounds like a movie. You should write that down. And so I just wrote it, I wrote it down. And that was the beginning of the Belham Realm series. That was my first uh romantasy as a portal romantasy that I put out, I want to say in 2023, and I think I completed it 2024. So yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there, and then I couldn't stop.
Yes, you got the bug and you couldn't stop and you were like, I can't see myself thinking clearly if I'm not putting things on the page.
Right.
That's how I see my husband is I'm like, you need to go right because you're not thinking you're
Yeah.
not thinking very clearly today. So I love that you had someone that was like, you know what? And then you're like, you know what? I am gonna write it down. And since then, oh my goodness, you've actually written a lot of books. I didn't count, but if you published your first book in 23 and it's 26 now, so you've actually written a lot of books in that time frame. I think like relatively quickly. So
Yeah,
props
I
for that.
don't ever stop because I started that in 2022. And then I just kept going. I wrote consecutively the entire year from the book 1, book 2, and I started book 3 and got burnt out. I was like, but I still wanted to keep writing. I got burnt out with the story itself, and then I didn't want to leave them yet because I knew that the 3rd book was the end. So I didn't want them to leave. I didn't want them to stop talking to me just yet. So I switched over to a different genre, which was a Regency inspired because I love Jane Austen. That was like, she was it for me when I was growing up. And so it was my kind of homage to her and wrote 3 consecutive novellas with that. So think Bridgerton kind of vibes, diverse characters and all that kind of stuff. And then I went back to book 3 and finished that because I finally felt like I could say goodbye to them. And then I just kept going and I was like, I want to write a rom-com. So I wrote a rom-com. Then I wrote a romantic suspense. And then, I mean, these are novellas, so they're not long, stories that I'm writing. And then in between, I'm always writing 1 or more stories at a time. And I write anywhere between, I don't know, 8,000 and 10,000 words a day, depending on how long I have. If I have an 8-hour period, then I can do the 10,000 words that day. So I just try to be always writing. And I take breaks and I try to give myself a 2-week period after I edit or finish a copy. And then I get it printed off and then I stop. I'm like, okay, I'll just stop now and do something else. So I'm always having to do something. My brain is always going and it doesn't stop until I shut my eyes. So my husband's like, you need to sometimes you just need to take a break.
It was
It's
so
hard.
hard. And I guess you found a good thing with self-publishing is because there's always something to be doing because you're wearing many, many hats, which we'll talk about later. So it looks like you found something perfect for you.
Yeah.
So what does a typical day look like for you living on your farm and with your family and your animals, and you got I'm gonna assume you have a lot of chores to do. Are
Yeah.
you making your own sourdough? Like, what are you doing? And getting your writing done in there too.
What's so funny is I don't do sourdough. I kinda hate it. I kill it every single time, poor thing. I have tried, I promise. But, yeah, it usually starts around 4:30, and I get up, I do all of my posting and record my videos, and kind of schedule them for the rest of the day. And then I, obviously get up, get myself together, wash up, all that kinda stuff. Then I come out, make sure my oldest is up and ready to go, get ready to get going for her day because she's a senior and everything. So she still goes to school. And I have our youngest who is almost 10 and I homeschool him. So he's still asleep. I get her food ready and her breakfast and lunch and send her on her way. He wakes up and I get him all sorted and situated and breakfast and he's good to go. And then he gets himself together. And then I have like a 2-hour period where I can write. So I try to knock out maybe a couple thousand words during that time. And this is if I'm actively writing a book.
Mhm.
And then after I do that, I do my my outside chores with my youngest, and that's taking care of the dog, the barn cat, and the chickens. We just make sure everybody has food, water, and everybody's clean and ready to go for the day. And then after that, we come back, we do school. We have school until about noon, and then we have lunch. And then after lunch, I try to do some more writing. I'll write anywhere, and because he has his Zoom friends that he chats with afterwards, and they do school together, or they have a gaming, session or whatever. And if we're not going to a homeschool event for that day, then I'll write for the rest of the afternoon until it's time for dinner. And then we do dinner. My husband comes home, daughter comes home. My husband and I make dinner together typically, and then we spend family time together for a couple of hours. And if I'm up to it, I'll do another hour or two of writing in between that. So, yeah, it's usually a typical day and it ends at 9 o'clock. I am very strict about my bedtime because I can't function without going to bed at a certain time. So, yeah, 9 o'clock, I'm in bed, I'm done, and then it starts all over again. So that's usually a
Well,
normal day unless
you've
it's
gotta set
a
that
weekend.
bedtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've gotta set that bedtime because if you're gonna get so much done, you're gonna be in your top game. You gotta be like, "Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Don't bother me after 9."
They know.
Okay, that sounds like such a fun life that you've built, and you've kind of are in a it sounds like a really beautiful place in life to be
Oh,
in
thank
with your
you.
family and your situation. So, I wanna talk about your early reading and writing because I read that you did grow up kind of writing short stories in your childhood, and you would read them to people, and you mentioned Jane Austen. So, what are some of the books that you grew up reading that you really loved? And then how did you come up with the idea of like, I'm gonna write my own story when you
Yeah, I was in elementary school. Reading was a huge deal, and back in those days, they had like those reading what are they called? Contests, I guess. And if you read so many books during the summer and check them off, you get a pizza, like a pizza pan or a meal at Fridays. So we were at Fridays and Pizza Hut a whole lot because I was we were always reading. My sister, we were always reading something. I loved Jane Austen, like I said, C.S. Lewis. I fell in love with that whole series of Narnia and everything. I read the whole series by the time I was 8, and, I read all of Jane Austen's books by the time I was 13, and then I was really into Shakespeare for a while. So my dad bought me the complete works of Shakespeare. We went to Barnes& and Noble one day, and I saw the book, and I have it still. It was a black-bound book with gold leaf and everything. I was like, "Oh, it's gorgeous." I was like, "Daddy, can I have this, please?" He's like, "If you promise that you read it to cover from cover to cover." And I was like, "Oh, heck yeah, I'll totally read." And I did. I read that entire thing. So I loved to read. I love stories. But I cannot remember the author's name to save my life, but there was a series of sisters. Each book was centered around this particular event that happened in the summertime. And it just showed all of their perspectives in that certain event. And it was just so beautifully written. And I loved it. And again, I was like 10 when I read that. So I just absorbed books when I was younger. When I was about, I want to say about 7 or 8, I wrote several like short stories and illustrated them too about like little tiger families, teddy bear families. Like I was really into teddy bears and just like their lives, just the romance and the life part and then the ending, and I wanted to write about people's lives and how they communicated with each other. And that's just how I've always written.
Well, it sounds similar to what you write now.
Yeah,
Some teddy bears, tigers, dragons.
it was
So,
easy
did
crossover.
you yeah. Was there ever a teacher, a librarian, parent of an adult figure in your young years that really influenced your early reading and writing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my parents, they were both teachers. They were, so reading was really, really important, which I happily indulged in. And then my first grade teacher, Mrs. G, was so incredibly sweet and encouraging and just she was just one of those teachers that you will always remember, you know what I'm saying? And she was just so genuinely kind and just encouraged that growth and would always introduce new stories and not just like the short, cute things, but like actual books, especially when she found out that I was reading chapter books in first grade. And she was like, here, like this is what we got. So I just remember just her just being very nurturing in that aspect of life for me. So, but yeah, for sure, my parents and Mrs. Truby, my first grade teacher.
I love that. Do you think now that you have an older child kind of getting ready for adulthood, but you kind of have a kid in the middle, have you found a lot of enjoyment in sharing these stories that you grew up with your children and kind of exploring literature together?
For sure. I definitely shared with our older one, and she's more of a reader than our youngest. And so she loves books. She loves all kinds of books, and she'll read pretty much anything. And she's actually my PA and has been for about a year when we go to events and stuff, and she helps me out. Which I'm gonna miss her when she goes to school. She won't be with me anymore. So we have a really good time together. And she loves the vibe. She loves the environment, and she's like, "These are my people." So she just loves like the author scene and being behind the scenes and seeing how we do stuff. She's actually done one of my. I have a children's book, and she illustrated it for me. So she's a really brilliant artist and everything. So we're working on the second book before she bolts out of here this summer. But yeah, really excited about that. And my youngest, he's not a reader. He reads beautifully, like can read and has been reading for a long time, but just doesn't like it. Mainly because he can't see anything when he reads. He just reads the words and knows what they mean, and that's it. He's like my
Mhm.
husband, poor things. And he doesn't like to read books, but he will. He reads mine because I make him. But yes, so my youngest definitely is supportive though. He is like the biggest cheerleader you will ever receive. And he's always like, wow, that does sound good, mom. That's awesome. Like he's just really, really, really supportive. Like the whole family is just on my team. And I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, it's so great to have a team and feel supported and know I can do this because it's hard to have a creative passion and
Mhm.
then try to pursue it because in your head, your own head, you're always your own biggest critic. You're
Right.
probably like,
Of course.
why do I keep doing this? Or this is so hard. And then you've got your cheerleaders, reminding you, what? You're the best. You got this. So for you, what was your moment where you were like, you know what? I can actually do this. I am going to do this.
It was after having that conversation with my girlfriend, and then she herself decided to write a story too. And she's now a published author as well. So we went in it together and we're like, let's get on to Book Talk and let's see how this goes. And we both created a Book Talk account. And we quickly got to 1,000 followers, and we just started. It just kind of snowballed out of control, honestly. And you just kind of get thrown to the shark, so to speak, and just like hope for the best. So I followed a lot of indie authors that were already doing it, and were giving out tips and tricks. And then after I started going into it, I found out some things that no one else was talking about. So then I started talking about them on Book Talk, and then I started doing an indie author spotlight, and that kind of went out of control. So it just kind of, like I said, you just kind of get thrown into these things and just kind of roll with it and hope for the best on the other side.
You're like, this is what we're doing now. I
Yep.
love it. I love the indie author community.
Yeah.
online, they're all so supportive and open with the struggles and
Right.
challenges and mistakes that they've made. And I love that there's not really a gatekeeping aspect with a lot of the
Absolutely.
authors I've talked to. They've always been so open to give advice. They're like, this is what I did. This worked miserably for me. So
Yeah.
you can learn from my
My
mistakes.
mistakes. Exactly.
I love kind community people. Specifically about writing, I want to know what part about writing challenges you the most.
I would say I am not an outliner. I am a pantser through and through. I just write. I think the most challenging part is trying to outline because everybody tells me that I need to. And when I do that, I don't want to write the story anymore because I'm like, I already know how it ends. I'm like, I'm over it. Like, I want to move on to the next. I have let a lot of books die because I've outlined them. And I can't get into the story anymore because it's just I already know. And I
Mhm.
want to find out as I'm writing what happens. Like I have a general idea. I'm not completely in the dark, but I don't know how I'm going to get to that point. Like I am just kind of winging it and hoping for the best. So I think the biggest struggle for me is plotting and getting to that story, but usually it works out in the end. So I'm just like, "Oh, wow, that was
Yeah.
great. I totally didn't mean to do that."
Yeah, my husband writes the same way. Everyone's always like, "You gotta have a detailed outline. You gotta do this," and we follow Brandon Sanderson. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a
Yeah.
really big like epic
Yeah.
fantasy author, and he talks about how his outlines are like paragraphs and paragraphs of outlines. And I'm like, are you doing it wrong, honey? Like, cause
Yeah.
he's obviously famous and doing it well. So like, are you doing it wrong? Cause he has this idea and then he just like writes it
Right?
out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's gonna happen? And he's like, I don't know. I will find out when you find out when when I get it on the page. And so I kind of was like, you know what? I have to trust that he knows his own creative process. That there's not only one way. You don't have to do it the
Right.
outline way. Yeah.
But
What's your favorite part about writing?
finding out what happens. I like writing from the male's perspective, from the guy's perspective. That's my favorite part, honestly. In the majority of my books, I do a dual POV, and some I don't, but most of them that I do. And I just like writing from his side of things, especially if he doesn't talk, but that he has a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings. And I like writing that. And I think it's mainly because that's how my husband is. He's very stoic and doesn't say much, but he has a lot to say when he does have something to say. And I think it, it's not that he withholds information from me. He's very willing to give it. He just doesn't say anything until I ask. Oh yeah, sure, I'll tell you. And then, the floodgates open. So, I like finding out what the guys are thinking. And I think that's my favorite part. I don't know why. That's just how it
It's a mystery to us. They're
is. Yeah,
just a mystery.
they are.
I love reading male POVs too, for that reason that you said, is because when we see them from anybody else's perspective, if you're doing a broody character, they're gonna be like, you're like, why? What is this character? So I also relate to that with my husband too, because I'm like, people look at him and they're like, he's a blue collar guy.
Yeah,
He's been in the military. He's not your typical, like, when you think of a writer, you're
yeah,
like, what? Who are you? Oh, but then you read his books and you're like, oh my goodness, your characters have so much emotions and
yeah,
stuff. So I love reading the male point of view too, especially coupled with that female, the back and forth of
yes,
what she's seeing, what he's seeing. I love a dual POV book. I had so
yes.
much fun reading The Forsaken Crown, which we're going
Thank
to talk
you.
about soon. But first, I want to ask a little bit about publishing. So, what was the process like for you to decide about, I'm going to self publish, I'm going to try traditional publishing, or was that never even a thought for you?
I didn't wanna, traditionally publish, honestly. When I talked to friends who had done it, they were explaining to me and not in any kind of way that downed it or made it sound bad, just, like, the factual information of it. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to give up the rights to just even a say in what the cover looked like. Like, you give them general ideas, and then they take it from there, and that's the cover, and you can't change it. I'm like, I don't know if I like that. I just wanted more control over the situation. I am a type A personality and I need to control the situation. So I just wanted to just have more creative control than you're allowed to in traditional publishing. That's not to say that maybe I'll go that route another lifetime and another, and see how that goes. But as now, I like what I'm doing. I like being an indie. I like the community. I just like the vibes of this world here. I never aimed to be rich and famous. That wasn't even a goal, honestly. It was more of a I have all these characters screaming in my head and I need to get them down on paper. And oh wait, I can make money off of this. This is great. So like that's literally like how the thought process went. And I'm like, well, let's see if I can make it a career and let's try this out. So it's never been about like the fame or anything. I don't even want that, honestly. I actually miss when you didn't know who the author was at all. Like you just knew a name and that was it. But in the age of social media, things are a lot different. But I like this. I like the coziness of this. So yeah.
What would you say were some of the biggest misconceptions you had about self-publishing now and now you know more? So, what was
The
something you
marketing side
misunderstood?
the marketing side. I had a misconception that I would just have to post a couple of times and that would be it, not realizing that I had to read for trends and see what works and make sure that my SEO was where it needs to be and check those every day and oh that one's changed. I had a complete misconception of what I would have to do marketing wise. And even I was like, well maybe I could just pay to market and that doesn't even work half the time. So it's people want to see your face. People want you to be engaging with them. People want to know who you are as a person rather than just an author. So that's all a part of the marketing and having and being a brand essentially. Like the name
Mm.
TL Combs is a brand now and I just have to adhere to that. So it's yeah, that I did not connect those dots. Like I said, I'm a behind the scenes, hence being a chef. That for me was that's behind the scenes. I've always been that type of person that wants to be back here rather than, hey, how are you? I'm in your face. Um, so yeah, I mean, though I don't mind being in front of people, it just takes a lot out of me. It's just like after events, I'm so exhausted. Like I'm so spent.
Mm.
But yeah, I did not realize the extent of the whole marketing brand and everything like that. So and having to now do that, it's just like kind of rewiring your brain and having a real understanding that this is a business and this is just one of the things that you have to do for it.
And you're like, this is so rewarding. I love my supporters. I love
Yes,
everybody. I love talking to people. That doesn't mean that it's not hard, but I'm grateful. But at the same
exactly.
time, it's difficult. It's like
Yes,
I'm managing a
absolutely.
lot of hats.
I love the support that I get. I am so appreciative that people actually read the stuff that comes out of my head because essentially I'm just writing this for me. If I want to read a certain book, I write it. If I want warm and cozy, I'm going to write a warm and cozy. If I want a severe deranged story, I write it. I have a separate pen name for that, so I write those stories over there. So yeah, it's just the ebbs and flows of everything. It's just I'm just kind of going with it, but I am very, very appreciative that people actually want to kind of dive in with me with this.
What do you wish readers understood about supporting authors, supporting an indie author?
That it's free, honestly. If you want to support and push, you just have to comment on our stuff. Because, like I said, social media is a thing, and that's like one of the necessary evils that we have to endure as indie authors, as authors in general. But that just interacting with our posts, interacting with us, commenting, boosting, talking about a book that you read does a whole lot more than they realize. I'm so glad you liked it, but could you talk about it too? Like, could you tell people you liked it? That would be really great. But yeah, it's just talking about it, not even necessarily to online, but just talking to your friends and family and people around you that would enjoy it too. Word of mouth is a big deal. Just uplifting the authors that you come in contact with and you enjoy their books. It's just so important that and then letting us know that you loved our book. We love hearing that. Don't tell us that you didn't like it, and don't list the reasons why you didn't give it a 5 star. Don't tell us that. I have been tagged in so many videos of people giving like a 4.5 star and then proceed to tell why they didn't give it a 5. It's like, I don't want to be tagged in this, guys. I promise you. I'm glad you liked it, but don't tell me why you didn't. Like, but yeah, but That being said, it is important to support indie authors and to talk about them and to just love on them, and we will greatly appreciate everything that we get from everybody.
I love that you said it's free because sometimes I'm like, oh, this author I love is putting out a book. I want to buy it because that's like, I mean, the best way is when they get paid.
Obviously.
But you're like, I'm just not in a place financially that I can buy a book right now. But you're right, you can just support if you're already online, and you see the post, might as well give it some love,
Yeah,
give it a share, give it comment or something that it doesn't cost you anything, which is kind of like in your book that one of the themes I caught was like kindness doesn't cost you anything to be kind.
right.
It's free.
It's free.
So I love
It's
that.
free.
Okay. Now I want to transition to talk about specifically the Forsaken Crown.
Mhm.
So this will all be spoiler free. This is like teaser information. So if someone obviously this interview is coming out like right after it comes out. So
Yeah.
not many people will have read it.
Yeah.
So spoiler free. I want to know, what is your elevator pitch to readers about the Forsaken Crown?
Goodness. This one's hard because it's my newest one. I have elevator pitches for
Good
every
practice.
one of the books except this one because I've yet to talk to people about it, but it is uh, about a young woman who finds herself given the marriage contract that was meant for her older half sister. And she's delighted about it. And she just thinks that she has romanticized this idea of an arranged marriage, that potentially, yeah, love will be formed and it will be amazing. And she quickly finds out that that's not real life. So we fast forward to actually the gentleman who she is marrying, the prince. He doesn't know that the change has happened. There has been cross wires and miscommunication, and the documents never make it to him. The change of the marriage contract, and he is very surprised when he comes up on the shore to see the younger sister standing in the place of her elder sister. So it's essentially a slow burn, and them trying to find their way as a married couple because he doesn't have a choice. He has to marry her because his kingdom is severely in debt because of his mother and her terrible dealings with the finances after his father passed. So yeah, that is essentially the side. There's definitely elements like Bridgerton and the show Rain. And if you read The Golden Compass, there are tether beasts, bonded beasts that they carry with them throughout their whole lives and all of that kind of stuff. So political intrigue, secret war,
It's got everything you could want in a book.
everything.
What is the origin story for this book? So where did it come from in your mind?
Oddly enough, it was supposed to be a Cinderella reimagining, hence the Ella part. Her name is Alara, and they nickname her Ella. So that's as far as it kind of went. And it just kind of went sideways. Hence, there's no outline. It just kind of rolls. I had an idea to do a Cinderella reimagining, which that was going to go under my other pen name because I do reimaginings with that. But it just didn't happen. It just wasn't flowing the way I thought it was going to flow. And it completely shifted gears and just went with how the characters were talking at that moment. So yeah, that's how that was supposed to go. And it just didn't go there.
And it grew into something different.
Yeah,
I love
completely.
that when you're like, my own idea just got out of hand.
Yeah,
And I love it.
absolutely.
What theme or experience from your real life made its way into your characters in this book?
It always does. Life always creeps into the storyline, whether you realize it or not, and you find out after uh, it's there. So, um, Ella's definitely me as a younger version of myself, very just whimsical and intrigued by everybody, and just sees the good in everyone that she meets. She hasn't been tainted by life yet. He is definitely, bits and pieces of my guy back there. Yeah, so it just not wholly, obviously, but, like, just little things that he has said to me or whatever just kinda slipped in there. But, yeah, it was just my elements of the things that I love. I love fantasy, I love romance, I love Regency type things, so the way they're speaking to each other is very Regency coded. So, yeah, I just that's me in there.
I love that. I want to ask you, because this is not technically spoiler free, but I want to know, what tether beast would you be bound to?
I would definitely be bound to Veyron, the Dragot or the small dragon. That would be mine for sure. Especially I don't know. I just, as soon as I decided that that's what was going to happen, because I had no idea that was going to happen. So when it happened, I was like, well, which one would I want? And I was like, a dragon, but I want it small so it
Mhm.
can hang out with me all the time. So that's how I did it.
So for listeners, can you just explain, spoiler free, briefly, the bonding and the little bit of the tether beast magic and how that works in your
Yeah.
books?
So this is an adjacent realm. If you know anything about the books that I've written, this is an adjacent realm to the Belham realm. That was the first romantasy that I wrote, and those are elves or an elven-like beings. They're called the Minoians. Now, I mentioned the Belham realm a couple of times in the Forsaken Crown when they're talking about certain type of food and certain type of situation, and even there's a nod to it by one of the mages. She has golden skin, and that's mentioned, and that's only in the Belham realm with the Minoans, and she has pointed ears. So I'm not going to tell you who she belongs to because I don't say it outright, but if you've read those books, you'll put it together. So that being said, they have in the Belham realm, they have bonded dire wolves. They don't have any other beast other than the dire wolves, and they only belong to the royal family. And so I kind of blended that into this realm where hence the portals, there's a portal that has to open up and there has to be a mage to make it happen. And she writes the runes for them to open up the portal for this particular realm. Now, this usually happens as children, as babies, when they're born and they make the connection. And the children usually only can give physical things of themselves, like a piece of hair or whatever. But if an adult is giving of themselves to this bonded creature, it has to be more than just a piece of hair or a whatever, a toy or whatever. It has to be something that is deeper than that, in order for them to be an actual connection, which means there's a tether being made between the two where they can hear each other's thoughts and all that kind of stuff. It is a very delicate balance that it's not, it's a consensual situation where the beast accepts you and you accept the beast, and that's the only way it's going to work. It's just not thrown upon you. It's the whole ritual
Mhm.
has to happen and take place in order for that bond to even seal.
Awesome. And I'm just going to say that they're very crucial to the plot and they're really great and you will love them once you read the book. Okay, now I want to talk about some of the more in-depth themes that I found in the book cuz you can read the book just as the romance and the fantasy. You don't have to read deep into it, but I just can't help myself. So, I wanted to know the first thing I really connected with was from the beginning of your book. Your female main character, Ella, is very open minded. And like you said, she sees good. She assumes good in people's intentions, even if they're not really doing good things. So she's just got this beautiful hope and light about
Yes.
life. Like you said, she's not tainted yet. And her mom was like, don't let them taint you over there. And so there's a really big theme in your book about emotions and feelings and gentleness
Hmm.
is not a weakness.
Right.
It's a strength. And just because you have those qualities doesn't mean you can't be a good leader or a strong friend or you can be great if you're gentle still. You don't have to be stoic and broody and emotionless. And you kind of have your female main character teach your male main character through her example of hidden strength in her gentleness and her kindness and her emotions. So,
Right.
first question is, are feelings weaknesses or strengths? And how did you come up with that conclusion?
I definitely think that feelings are a strength. Emotions are a strength, and learning how to control those emotions. Now, I don't mean to stifle them. That's not what I mean. I mean to being open that these emotions exist. You know that these emotions happen, but being able to control them appropriately for the situation that you're in. Love, kindness, terror, anger, sadness, like all of those are emotions that we all have as humans. And I just think it's really important that we feel them. And it doesn't make us weak because, like I said, we all have them. The weakness comes in is when we let those emotions overtake us. That's when it becomes a weakness, not because you have the emotions. We can't help
Good.
it. We inherently have them and they will never go away and we will always feel them. It's when we try to suppress and stifle them down so we don't feel is when we become weak.
You gotta take our advice from Queen Elsa, which is conceal, don't feel is not the way to go.
No, not at all.
I would
Have we
definitely
learned
agree
nothing?
that, yeah, that the real strength is in when you can understand your emotions and the emotions of others is like an
Hmm.
even another step up is when you
Yeah,
have that like empathy and that ability to understand other people's feelings too.
absolutely.
And learning how to, like you said, not stifle it, like, "Oh, I'm angry, I'm stifling it." It's, "Oh, I'm angry, okay, what's wrong?" Or
Yeah.
like, "Why am I angry?"
Why
And being able
exactly?
to have an understanding and an emotional intelligence is a strength
Yes.
that I think we all can always keep developing. And
Hmm.
I have little kids and I watch them learn, like, my daughter sees me having a hard time and she's like, "Mom, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
you're such a beautiful person,"
I know. I
because
love it.
you're acknowledging that
Right.
someone else is having a hard time, or she'll have a hard time and she'll be like, "I need a nap. I
Yeah.
am not." And so I'm like, "Go, you go, girl. I'm
Yeah.
so glad
I
you
love this for you.
identified that." So I love what you said about that we don't let it overtake us. That it's
Right.
hard, life's so hard, and the emotions are so hard to deal with. But you can, with the right tools, support, education, and practice,
Right.
you can use your emotions as a strength.
Exactly.
Um, so another thing with this was that in your book, you said kindness doesn't cost me anything. Ella was like, kindness doesn't cost me anything, so that's what I'm gonna do. Um, and I was like, the opposite of that is I was thinking, I was like, I actually do think that being mean does cost us. Like when you choose to hold a grudge or you
Hmm.
choose, we all do it. We're not all perfect.
Right.
You've done it in your life at least once where you kinda choose to say a mean thing or maybe not take the higher road, and you're like, "Oh, that felt so good." And then you have a weight in you that you're just like, "Actually, never mind."
Yeah.
And I think that does cost you, and I think kindness actually helps you gain stuff. Like, when you're kind to people, it feels so freeing and, like, connecting and energizing.
Right.
So, I love that quote, and I wanna know what life lessons you have learned that made you learn that kindness doesn't cost anything.
I think more so than anything is being a mother. I mean, yeah, in relationships and friendships, obviously, you grow. And I know that I have done things as a kid and like preteen and all that stuff like that, which is like downright mean for no reason. But immediately saw the effects of what I did or said that it had on somebody. Even now, I can see, like, the pain I have caused someone, and I'm just like, "I don't ever wanna do that again." I remember I was like I think I was, like, 10, and I was one of my other friends got something, and then my other girlfriend was not happy about it, so she decided to write a mean letter, and I was like, "Sure, I don't care, you can write it, blah, blah, blah." She's getting on my nerves anyway, and we both signed it and sent it to her, and she cried for the rest of the day. And I'm sitting here like afterwards, and we're both adults. I mean, we've talked, and she's forgiven me. We've gotten over it now, obviously. But I remember just like thinking, like, I never ever want to do that to somebody ever again. And obviously, I've gone back on that a couple of times. Growing up and being a teenager and just dumb, but I will make sure that I apologize because I don't like that. I don't like feeling that way. I don't like making someone feel that way. And I believe being a mom really solidified that for me because now I'm making sure that I have what I do and say and teach my kids produces good people in the world, And like we have a responsibility as parents to make sure that we're not sending out toxic or wounded people or trauma-ridden people, out into the world. I want my kids to be able to make the world a better place or at least leave it better than what they found it. And that's what
Mhm,
I always tell them, like, you should always leave a space better than what you found it. And you need to apply that in life too. The space where you live and you exist in should always be better because you're in it.
mhm.
Plain and simple. And you should always make that effort. So, but like I said, it's like being a mom has really solidified that kindness is free and kindness is the key to, making this world work the way it should.
And being an example, whether you're a mom or not, just being an example as a person
Right.
really does go a long way, and especially as a mom. I mean,
Absolutely.
my little girls copy everything,
Yeah,
literally everything I do. They like to do
everything.
this game where they pretend to be stressed out, getting ready to leave the house in a rush. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I need to
No.
manage my time better. They're like, oh, we need to go. You'll have to eat your snack in the car. And they just make fun of me. But I'm like, noted, noted. I need to
Yes. Let me
give
tell
us more
you,
time to get ready.
no one will call you faster than your own kids, so
Yes, and so I'm so grateful that just being a good example to your friends, your family.
mhm,
I have even as an adult, I've noticed I'm at book club and something will be going on that maybe I'm like, I don't know if we should be talking about this, and then another friend comes up and is like, hey, you guys, this probably isn't a good topic
right,
or something, and I'm like, you know what, you're right. I should have said something,
right.
and so I love even now as an adult, we can still make mistakes and we can still be
Exactly. Just
example
still
for our
learning
friends
from it, but
and
it's
still
being
growing.
the having that willingness to learn and be taught, even as
Mhm,
adults,
mhm,
and saying, "Hey, you know what? I messed up. I'm sorry. That's my bad." And just owning
yeah.
it, so I think it's really important that we still do it as adults.
So the next topic I want to talk about was specifically from your romance characters in your book. Kind of, I loved seeing a very complicated representation of marriage and relationships are actually really difficult
Mhm.
sometimes. And especially if you have external conflict pressuring the situation, it makes it
Absolutely.
even harder. So thank you for showing a complicated relationship where things weren't always easy. Um, and just because something's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it. So, why did you want to show up a relationship where people are making mistakes, people say things that are harsh, they should not have said,
Yeah.
and they hurt each other's feelings, but then you show them working through it. And that was the part that I really loved was we apologized, we did something wrong, we're working through this. So what was your thought process in I want to make sure I'm showing the drama, but I also want to show
Yeah, I am really big on resolution when it comes to my characters. I'm big on I typically hate the miscommunication trope and then there's no actual resolution. It's just like, "Oh, because I love you and we made out and now we're having a love scene." It's like, "No, that's not how that works."
Mhm,
I'm okay with miscommunication when when there's actual communication afterwards. So I make sure of that in literally all of my stories that they talk it out and they work through it. And I think it's a representation of our family life because I mean I know it is a representation of our family life because that's how we do. We talk about everything. There's no even if I need a minute or because I'm usually one that needs a minute. My husband's like, let's talk about this now. I'm just like, actually, but there's no yelling, there's no screaming, it's, hey, let's have a conversation. Let's discuss this. I didn't feel this way, or you made me feel this way. And it's like, oh, I didn't intentionally do that. I am so sorry. And, there's always that open line of communication. There's no fear of having that communication. And it's the same way for our kids. God help us, they tell us everything, which is great. I'm so happy that we're at this point. At the same time, it's like, hey, you can have secrets. Like, that's okay with us. You're allowed. But, I am very thankful that they feel open enough to tell us everything that goes on, especially my youngest. He is very open about every feeling that he has. And I'm just like, well, that's my fault. Like, we communicated with him all the time.
mhm,
So that's what he's used to. He's used to, let's talk this out. I want to talk about it. I have feelings. So that's how I put that in my stories. Yes, I know there needs to be drama and conflict, and that I always put that in there. However, I
mhm,
always want there to be a very specific reason of conflict resolution, essentially. And I want them to discuss it and talk about it and understand why they did what they did and either apologize for it or say they're not, just that vibe. I love that in a story, that kind of, that's amazing. I love this.
mhm.
So yeah, that's my favorite.
Yes, I agree. I loved it too because I also am not the biggest fan of miscommunication, like for the sake of miscommunication or like
Right.
for the sake of drama. I'm like, well, this is not okay, people. We need to have a conversation and you guys are just kissing. We need to talk
Yeah.
about this before we do physical stuff. And so I really loved that. I was just kind of like, I've said things to my husband in a disagreement recently, and I was like, oh, I just never see that in a book of like someone saying something mean and then it being like, I should not have said that in a book. Usually
Yeah.
it's like, things are happening and we don't have time to talk about anything.
Yeah.
So it's not like it took up a huge chunk of the plot,
Right.
but it was well, I appreciated it for
Thanks.
my own sake of realism in
Yeah.
a fantasy world. And also between your relationship, you definitely show the complexities of a multicultural, multiracial relationship and the external pressures that come from trying to merge. They weren't in love at first, or I'm not going to say anything about that, but
Yes.
when you merge two families together, two
Right.
people together that come from such different places of like they just cannot understand yet each other. They don't have the knowledge or the sympathies to really like understand what's going on
Right.
in the other person's history. So I guess I want to know is why you wanted to show it and why your story, the way you wrote it, was an important way for you to depict that type of relationship and
Right.
situation.
Well, my whole being is multicultural. So my dad is Korean, my mom is black and mixed and everything else, and my husband is white. I am whatever I am, and and so I come from like just my whole family, like a rainbow of people. And so that's what I write, a rainbow of people, because that's what I'm used to. That's what I see all the time. And so I wanted to portray that without outright saying, because he's this and she's that, and this is why, and it's a race war. Like, I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to do it in a delicate, elegant way where it was understood that's what we were talking about, but not just being slapped in the face with it too, because it's a fantasy. So like I didn't want you to be taken out of the fantasy because of that. So I did it in a very meticulous way where it's a multicultural cast, so you really can't tell what's happening. But because she is half commoner, that's kind of my little see what I'm saying? So saying it without saying it. And the him not having an issue with it, but having an issue with it at the same time, and his mother obviously having an issue with it, and her microaggressions, and not even it's macroaggressions, obviously.
Mhm.
So, like, I wanted to showcase that, and then I wanted to give you a little, relief of it as well. So, for things that happen later on in the book, but yeah, I wanted you to feel what she felt and the insecurities that came with it, even though she had such a positive and optimistic outlook in life, but she still had those insecurities that settled into her. And she was like, well, maybe I am just what they call me and I'm not supposed to be here. And so I wanted her to kind of struggle with that and struggle that within herself and realizing and I didn't want him to be the one to make her feel like, "Oh, now I am somebody." Like, I didn't want
Mhm.
that. I wanted her to feel that way because of who she was as a character and her development and such. So that's how I often portray my FMCs is being strong, independent women outside of the relationship, and then they just add to it.
Yeah.
They're just
They lift
a
each other up
compliment.
instead
Yes.
of, "Oh, you lifted me up and I'm here with you," but
Right.
they both have taught each other a lot.
Mhm.
Because I think that's something I really liked was your male perspective was him having to learn kind of the difference between like you had said, is I'm okay with it, I don't have any issues, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's, like, understanding of, like of what she's feeling or that's not the same thing as support either.
Right.
It's just like, "Oh, I'm not an issue," but you're also not, like, helping
Right.
anything either. So I
Exactly.
really appreciated his perspective of kind of along with myself, like, learning how to have empathy or how to be kind to people that maybe have different backgrounds than you or, just learning how to be empathetic to
Yeah,
people is something that we all need to
absolutely.
remind ourselves of and keep growing and I don't think you can ever have too much empathy,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
you can
just the
always
small
get
things
more.
too in the book, like her making mention that when they're on the boat headed back to, his kingdom or their new kingdom now together, that, she learns the name of the boy that's giving her her meal, and he's like, "Who?" 'Cause she calls him by name, and he's like, "Who?" And she's like, "The kid who just was here, like, what are you talking about?" And she's like, "It's not hard to learn someone's name. Like, these are the people who work, like, they are the reason you have a kingdom. Like, they make sure everything flows. So you need to know who they are. That's what makes a good king. And she's like, that's what I'm used to. I'm used to that environment. And so, like, I think that's like another echo of like my family. That my family's very communicative. That's not to say that we didn't have our issues, but very communicative. We had a very strong familial bond. And, on my husband's side, so they're a close family. They're not as close as our family was. And there's some things that are just like, okay, you guys do it that way. Okay. That's cool. So
Mhm.
it's like a learning. So I wanted to have that kind of slight imbalance in the family dynamic, and kind of see how that would play out in this kind of storyline. And so that's how I get with.
I loved it, and I love, like, because when you take 2 people and they form a marriage or family or relationship, they're gonna create their own version of what family love, what that looks like
Right.
for that's best for, like, those 2 individual characters. And it's because you grow up and you're like, "Oh, I'm kinda missing this feature in my family
Yeah.
life." And then when you grow up and you're dating and stuff and you find a person that fills that, you're like, "Oh, this is what I was wanting that makes me feel the most
Right.
loved and reciprocated." And so I really loved that you did that in this book because it wasn't easy. Because it's not easy to blend, to get married, different backgrounds, different kingdoms, just all the complications.
Right.
Even in a normal life, it's
Yeah.
different to just
Absolutely.
merge 2 families of like, we did this for Christmas. Oh, we did this. We didn't do
Right.
Christmas. We did this. So I thought you did a very fantastical, it's still fiction, but there's some really real elements that I think make it a good book and
Thank you.
make it enjoyable to read. So
Thanks.
I wanted to ask is what do you want people to learn from your female main character?
I think we've been hitting on it with those points of having that kind of tenacity for life and having that openness for good things to come to you, that hope, because we are nothing without that little bit of hope to get us through the next day and the next and the next, so on and so forth. So I think that's kind of what I want people to feel when they read, from her perspective, is that hope and that light that, she feels, even though the situation isn't the best it could have possibly been. It's not the romance story that she was hoping that they see each other and that's the end of it, and now they're madly in love. But she had to grow up, essentially, but she didn't lose that light in her. Even though she went through it, there was a lot of stuff that she had to go through. She did not lose the beauty at seeing the beauty in things and seeing the light and the kindness and love in other people. And I want people to understand, like, you can go through it, but you still don't have to lose that part of yourself. You don't have to lose that hope, that tomorrow will be a little bit brighter than today was.
And what do you want people to learn from your male main character?
Oh, to get over yourself. No, I want them to learn that, you can teach an old dog new tricks. You don't have to stay, even though you grew up a certain way. You grew up in a certain type of home. You grew up, experiencing not all the things that you needed to nurture the appropriate things to make an emotionally intelligent person. You can still grow and still be, a whole person. You don't have to just stay in the stagnant pond that, that emotional stagnant pond that you were taught to be in.
Mm.
So yeah, that's how, because he was able to, you know,
Yeah,
eventually
he
get over
definitely grows.
it.
Okay,
It's gross.
so now we're gonna kind of start closing out. I just have a couple of final questions.
Yeah.
First one is, how can readers connect to you? How can they support you? How can they find you? Website, socials, those things
Yeah.
that I can link for
Um,
people.
I am on TikTok, I am on Instagram, I am on Threads, I am on Blue Sky, I'm on any social media platform you can think of. I'm probably on it. I think the only one I'm not on is X, so I don't have the time to write stuff all the time like that because I'm writing in books every day. And I have a website. It's just authortlcombs.com. I'm also on Linktree. You can just find me by my name. I believe all of my social handles are the same for the most part. But yeah, that'll be all linked in there. So, but yeah, you can find me on all
Mhm.
of those.
Okay, and tell us briefly about what other books series you have written, and then if you have anything planned that you can share.
Yeah, I have the Belgium Realm series. That was my first romantasy series that is completed. I have a Regency inspired romance series that's called the Carter Sister series. I also have the first book that I wrote that I told you about back in 2008. I republished it. It's a duet. It's called "It Take Time to Realize," and the realization of him. That's about a young chef and the other second book is his perspective, and it blends the story beautifully together. And it turns out he is a chef's assistant, and she meets him on a night on the town, and he's a chef's assistant at her school, and she doesn't know it until she sees him in class. So that's a fun one. Uh, and then I have a rom-com, which is called Charmed Again. It's like a blend of, Persuasion and Emma from Jane Austen, but make it a Black rom-com. And then there's Fractured, that is my romantic suspense. I call that my lifetime, movie or book. And then I have a Christmas book called The Plus One Exchange, that is a rom-com set in Scotland. And I also have another pen name under Honey Bee Combs, and she writes dark fantasy romance kind of reimaginings. And I have two books out with that. Ensnared into the Shadows, which is a Beauty and the Beast reimagining. If Gaston got a happily ever after, yeah,
Sign me up. That's my
that,
genre.
those are short novella that I put together for that. I was like, I want to see what would happen. And then I have Her Treasure, which is a gender bending Mulan reimagining with Pirates of the Caribbean vibes. So that one's fun. He has to turn into a woman to get on an all female ship, and she unalives all men that she finds on her ship. So it's fun. There's an age gap. She's older, he's younger, he's puppy dog, and she's a black cat. So it's a great vibe. And I have a new book coming out under Honeybee Combs, and that's called Ashes of Death. That is if a phoenix and a Grim Reaper formed a soul tie, and there is like no redeeming qualities for either one of them. She's morally black, and he's morally gray, and enables her, and she unalives people, so he stays around. It's like a whole thing. Yeah. So those are basically the books. I'm always writing. I got another one in the works now that I just finished the cover for. I draw my character art. I do other people's character art. I've done dozens and dozens of other indie authors' character arts now. So yeah, I keep myself busy in this industry, and I just have fun with it.
That's awesome. What is your long-term vision for your writing career?
Long term is I would love for my husband to be able to come home, like, and not have to work. That would be like the absolute dream, if I were able to financially support our family with just this, and he could
Mhm.
just be home with all of us and not have to work.
I hope that you get that because
Thank
I
you.
agree that would be the dream
Yeah.
for a lot of people. So, my last question that I ask every author that I interview is why do you write?
Right, for me, I write for the little girl who didn't see herself in the fantasies and the romantasies and the Regency and historical fictions that she read. I didn't see myself in any of them though, so I had to imagine that much harder. Like, oh, this is me, I'm in it, you know. So I wanted to make it easier for the girls who didn't see themselves normally, the mixed girls, the black girls, you know, the multidimensional girl. I wanted to see them in stories that we don't normally see them in. So thank goodness that we're in a situation now in Hollywood and everything that making more multicultural things. However, I want more, not taking away from someone else necessarily, but making more for us too. So we are
Mm,
all included in that kind of umbrella.
awesome. That's such a good reason to write is to show other people also that their dreams can come true too of like I'm doing this, I'm an example, you could do it too.
Absolutely.
Or having books with someone that they identify with, young adults growing up. I think it's important cuz you don't know what you could inspire in someone when they see themselves in a story or when they resonate with a character. So I think that's
Absolutely.
a beautiful reason. And also to write for yourself because it's
Yeah.
the best therapy is what I've heard from my
Yep.
husband. So,
Definitely is.
um, so thank you so much for being here. I will definitely link all of your profiles below so that listeners can find you and follow along with your journey. And yeah, so thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.